What's in a name, especially where the church is concerned? Tonight, the debate over sexism in religion. Webster's guest, Dr. Ann Squire, moderator of the United Church of Canada.
The United Church of Canada has a new moderator. Not surprising, but the moderator is a woman. She once was a Sunday school teacher, and now she heads the largest Protestant denomination in Canada, Dr. Ann Squire. Dr. Squire, during the summer, I could not, if you'll forgive me, and I'm not being blasphemous, resist a giggle at the new names for God, which were talked about in your meeting in Sudbury last month. Does this mean that our Father is finished as our Father?
Not at all. The first reports that came out of Sudbury were quite inaccurate because the action that was taken at Sudbury was to say that we should enlarge our whole language about God, that we should add all the other metaphors and images that are there in the Bible and not get locked into always calling God our Father, because there are many, many images there. Unfortunately, the first reports that came out said that the United Church was out to eliminate that language, and that was not true at all. We're out to try to enlarge that.
But there was, or was there, said he more diplomatically, a feminist drive to make sure that God would not permanently, at least in your church, be described as Father with the sexual connotation.
I think there was a drive. It wasn't entirely feminist because many of the theologians were involved in this as well. But there was a drive to make the language more inclusive, both the everyday language so that women weren't always called man and included in mankind, that sort of language, but also to make sure that the language that we did use about God was the sort of language that everybody would be comfortable using. And for some women, it helps to use other images rather than always using the Father image.
Well, don't let me be a product of my Presbyterian environment, but if the word Father is not totally acceptable to some people, why not just use the word God?
Well, that's a perfectly good word, and that's one that we do like to use. And you'll find that very often when words are changed, the word he is often changed so that we do just use the word God rather than that. The problem is basically one of not just language, but also the structures and the reality that lie behind that language, so that what women are saying by asking that that be changed is that some of those patriarchal structures that have given us that language need to be broken down.
But the suggestion was made as an alternate name as our mother instead of our father. Was that
well,
a serious one?
Yes, that's a serious one because there are images in the Bible that do call God mother. I
didn't know that.
Well, for instance, in the three parables about that Jesus told about God and the lost, there's the parable of the lost son, which makes God the Father. There's the parable of the lost sheep, which makes God a shepherd, which could be male or female. And there's the parable of the lost coin, and it's a woman who is sweeping to find that lost coin. So that's one example, and you'll find many others there as well.
Mother, creator, sustainer, redeemer, nurturer. That seems a funny one to me. And then, but the bad words, not the bad words, the words which shouldn't be used exclusively therefore are father, king, he, and master. Is that right?
They shouldn't be used exclusively. That doesn't mean we are saying that they shouldn't be used.
You'd have to change 1,000 hymns, won't you? What are you going to do about, you're going to change the hymns?
Eventually. No, I think it's very...
King of Kings has got such a magnificent role and glory to it. How can you replace King of Kings
and
with
rise up,
else?
O men of God. I mean,
yes.
Are women included in that?
Well, of course.
Those are the sorts of things that we hope to change.
Words like mankind are surely so deeply rooted that they mean every single breathing, living human being on earth.
But there are many women who don't feel included in that.
But as far as the individual is concerned, he can say his prayers at night, be they a supporter of the faith, father or mother.
Right. That's right. That's right. And that's what inclusive means. And that's what was misunderstood by the media and misunderstood by many people across the church. What we're saying is pray to God in the way that's most comfortable for you. And if you want male images, fine. If you want female images, fine. If you want the images that have nothing to do with sexuality, like my God is a consuming fire, God is rock, all of those images, that's also
funny. It's not the most important thing on your mind, but it's the one that I immediately asked you about.
It's the one that the media is most interested in.
And I think ordinary people too.
Sure.
You know?
Sure.
Now, what's the biggest single problem? You've dealt with the South African bit, haven't you? You've withdrawn all your money. And you're still a member of the World Council of Churches. What do you see going to happen in South Africa?
Well, what the church has been trying to do in cooperation with many other churches is to do whatever is possible to break down those structures of apartheid. And I think the church has always worked toward that end and has tried to do whatever seems to be best at the particular time. And as far as the United Church is concerned, what seemed to be best for many years was to leave our shares in the companies, but then try to persuade the companies to get out so that there was a bigger divestment. But in light of the call from our South African friends who have said that the other way is the way to go at this time, that's what the council decided to do.
You were mentioning a basic change in theological education in the church, which perhaps you can explain to me. I thought theological education was something which was confined to those who are going to join a ministry. What have you done? Is this your move? Are you the moving spirit behind the change in theological education?
I'm not the moving spirit, but I'm part of the whole enterprise that's made that happen, because back in 1977 to 1980, I chaired a committee called Project Ministry, which attempted to look at the relationship between lay and clergy. And one of the recommendations that we made at that time was that theological education should be made more available to the laity as well. And not too much has happened about that till this General Council. And this General Council has said that all of the resources of the United Church of Canada should be now made available to anyone who wants to take theological education to learn better how to share in ministry, because we firmly believe that everyone has a share in ministry. The work of the ordered ministry is different from the work of the laity, but both are important.
I want to deal with another couple of topics with Dr. Ann Squire after the break. With you, Dr. Ann Squire, as the lay head, lay moderator of the church, this will change a lot of emphasis in the church. How come a lay person was elected?
I think it had something to do with the whole emphasis that the church has had on the ministry of the laity. Over a number of years, the church has been saying just what I said earlier, that every person in the church does have a ministry, different kinds. And I think that my election says that the church is now taking seriously the rhetoric that's been used for a number of years around that.
Let me turn to a couple of issues. I remember that I think the United Church apologized to all of Canada's native peoples. Was that for your own sins or for our sins?
It was for what had happened in terms of the missionary enterprise, particularly within the United Church of Canada and the churches which are our heritage, because the church was not apologizing for taking the gospel to those people, and the native people would not want that to happen because they appreciate that. They were apologizing for the way in which it was done, which denied the culture and the spirituality of native people.
In fact, to put it brutally, attempted to wipe out the culture and the spirituality of the native peoples. Are you happy, therefore, to see the resurgence in Indian culture, Indian spirit ways, and in the Indians' faith in their spirit?
I think we have a great deal to learn from them in terms of spirituality. They have a very deep spiritual life that does believe in God.
Does that mean that you will back off from any expansion of the Presbyterian Church's activities involved with the native peoples of Canada?
The Presbyterian churches? The United Church does have a ministry with Native people. We're certainly not backing off, but what is happening is that more and more they are being allowed to make the decisions that affect the life in their own communities.
This may result in a reduction in your membership among Native communities.
Oh, I don't think so. I think it will increase it. For example, it used to be that a Native person, if he or she wanted to become a minister in the United Church, they had to go to an ordinary theological school. But in the last few years, the United Church has opened up the Dr. Jesse Soto Center outside of Regina, where Native people can train for ministry in ways that are suitable for their own life and their own communities.
Now, tell me about your legal peace tax. Are you serious about that?
The legal peace tax. Oh, I see what the one where.
Well, you're going to press the federal government, apparently, for how people can direct their taxes away from military goods or defense.
There are a good many people in the United Church who are very unhappy about their taxes going for military purposes, and who want to be able to have some say in how the money that they give
is this used. A policy of the United Church of Canada?
It was voted on, yes, at this, that they will explore this whole thing with the government. I mean, we don't know what's going to happen about it.
It seems to be highly impractical that you could have one class of people committed to a government who are committed to alliances and obligations in Europe or elsewhere, and yet some of your people want to say, we'll pay our taxes, but we won't pay our taxes, and you mustn't spend it on guns, but on butter. I mean, that's kind of airy-fairy and a little bit naive, is it not?
To me, it comes out of the same sort of mentality where some of our people want to tell us where their money can go when they donate it to the Mission and Service Fund of the church. But I think people do have a right to have some say in where that money goes, and if the politicians don't listen to them in terms of military spending.
Surely our right to say so is at the polls, to throw the rascals out if we don't like what they're doing. Now, I suppose one other topic I must cover is, what about the ordination of homosexual and lesbian ministers? Has that been a big controversy?
It
and
was,
has a decision been made on it?
It was a major issue at the last General Council, because the report did come out which said that sexual orientation should not be the major factor in determining whether a person was fit for ministry. It was not an issue at this General Council because the United Church is presently studying that whole issue right across the church at all levels, and that decision will be made at the next General Council in Victoria in 1988.
Have you decided what leadership you will give in which direction on that problem?
My stance on that is well known. I will naturally support whatever decision the church makes on that, but I personally have been in favor of ordaining any gay or lesbian person who is found suitable for ministry according to all the criteria that the church sets out. I'm not saying that everyone who presents himself or herself for ordination should be ordained. But
well, surely the same tests will apply to any other person.
That's right.
Without that particular connotation or concern. How's your money these days? Are you a wealthy church?
No, but we're managing. We're just about breaking even. Like all churches, it's hard to get it increased to the extent that we can do all the things we like to do.
Well, of course, one of the big problems in Western Canada, and we find people from the other side of the country, not yourself, don't realize it, is the incredible economic imbalance and the rising unemployment and the great industrial problems we have here, while you've got prosperity in the East. Have you been to any of our food banks?
No, but we do have them in the east as well. And General Council met in Sudbury, which is one of the most economically depressed places in Ontario at the moment. And so the whole focus of our Bible study this time was on the economic situation, and we had people come to speak to us from that Sudbury situation.
My thanks to Dr. Ann Squire, and I can make my own choice between Father, Mother, God, Creator, Sustainer, Redeemer, Nurturer, but I must be careful with King, He, and Master. I'll be back after the break. Monday night, Prime Minister Mulroney with Webster. Oh, it's going to be difficult, but you'll see him here Monday night with Webster at 5 p.m. precisely.